So, Barbara, thank you so much for offering to do this for us. And what I'd like for you to do is just to start with what you've learned about the history of Dunbar as an adult and once you went to school, what those experiences are like. But first, if you just share with us about what you know about the history of Dunbar School.
Okay, you know my name is Barbara Holland's maiden name Lewis. And I started attending Dunbar in 1942. That was my first grade year. And of course I didn't know anything about it before I started, but I can tell you that I almost immediately fell in love with it. I don't know why. I was very talkative and very engaged in everything, and of course they had to slow me down. But my first grade teacher, who I loved, her name was Belle Carter. And first I love her name. I mean, it just sounds like an old Western woman. I just loved her. And she never called me Barbara. She always called me my middle name, Maxine. Why, I don't know. But I can tell you what I felt about Dunbar then. There are two things. This is my first experience of tasting white paste, and my first experience of smelling that sawdust stuff they used to sweep the floors with. And whenever I smell that now, it brings back those memories of Dunbar. I was a talkative kid, so constantly I was in the principal's office, so I knew Mr. Maxwell, who was my principal at the time, very well. Now, Mr. Maxwell was not the first principal at Dunbar. He was the last and the longest. The first principal was Cicero Simmons, and he started Dunbar was actually not the first segregated school. The first segregated school was called the Colored School, and it was over on 6th and 6th in Tucson. And that was in an abandoned, a vacated mortuary and bakery. And Mr. Simmons came to Tucson to be the principal. He was recommended by Booker T. Washington. And that held a lot of sway for getting him the job. Mr. Washington, he was an advisor to presidents and so forth about the condition of African Americans in the United States. So anyway, Mr. Simmons came because of health. Actually, he wanted to come because of health reasons. He had tuberculosis. And this weather would be good for him. Plus, he did have credentials to teach. Poor man, he made $90 a month. He had to teach everything. And if when the kids would graduate from 9th grade, if they wanted to learn anything before they went to high school, he had to also teach that on his time. He was the janitor, the teacher, he was everything. So in 1940, that's when Morgan Maxwell came to the school. Like I said, I started here in 1942. So he made a lot of changes. We still were deprived at Dunbar. We didn't really realize how much or that much, but we only got books after all the other schools had been done with them. We were wondering why when the books came, we had to immediately make those little paper bag covers and stuff, cover them up because kids had written in them and so forth and so on. And we didn't have a cafeteria as such. We didn't have a library really as such. There was a book room, however. We didn't have a gymnasium. We had none of those things. But our teachers and our principal, Mr. Maxwell, they taught us well beyond those used books. They brought all the stuff to us. They gave us love. They told us that we could be anything we wanted. And any African American of note, any, that passed you shouldn't pass through Tucson because they were going to drag them in to talk to us, so that we had role models. We had several role models. I guess I can give you big names, I guess. Marian Anderson came and stood in we had an arch that kind of served as our auditorium. The person would stand under that arch, and down the hallway, the kids would come out and stand in the classrooms. So she came and talked to us and told us, I mean, her words were, find a star and reach for it. And that's her quote that we remember. We put it on a plaque to remember that. Langston Hughes, the writer and poet and activist, he came. Oh, Langston is the reason we got some cooling in our building. We had nothing. We didn't have any, of course, air conditioning wasn't there at that time, but we didn't have anything. And when people would come and we stand in the hallway, a couple of the kids had fainted. Well, that happened when Langston was here. And he pitched a fit to the TUSD, did the whole thing, wrote letters. In about 6 months, we had swamp coolers. That might not sound like a wonderful thing, but it was wonderful. And we owe that to Mr. Hughes. All the baseball players came because those that were here for spring training, they were here. And they used to have demonstration games where other East Coast, what were they called? They were called the Colored League or the Negro League. They came to do demonstration games in Tucson. So they couldn't stay at hotels or any place here. So across the street from here on 2nd were the Willis's house. And most of the baseball players stayed over there. And they signed balls and gave them. And anyway, they all came to talk to us. Larry, Dolby, Jackie, all of them came and talked to us. So, but I got to tell you, I asked Dolores where were those balls, because they'd be worth money now. Well, she said, girl, we played with the balls and we lost every one of them. So they're that, that thing. But we do know they were there because we saw them. And like I said, they came to talk. I do believe that the Dunbar community were our parents. We were like a big family because we had each other. That's what we had. And, like all families do, things weren't always peachy keen and rosy, but everybody looked after everybody. Everybody talked to everybody. And also part of that family for a while, or we had Chinese-owned grocery stores almost in every corner. And some folks had little bills there where you could go in and buy stuff when you didn't have the money. You signed for it. It was just like everybody helped everybody because nobody had that much, especially quote unquote minority people. I just remember that kind of thing. I just remember the love of the teachers. I remember the way they encouraged us to do the best we can. And I'll just say that I can say with a clear mind that at least 35 to 40% of all the students at Dunbar became professional, some world renowned. They took it to heart to be the best. That was our motto. I know I lost a spelling bee once, and I didn't want to go to school for 2 days because I felt I had let everybody down. You want to know what my word was? My word was Yosemite. And we were spelling phonetically. If they'd said Yosemite, I would have had it. But Yosemite, somehow that got away from me. But that was the kind of thing. And we did have whiz kids. We had Ernie McCrae, who who is at the U of A in the basketball Ring of Honor, and I do believe his rebound score in one game is still stands since 1960. But he was a whiz kid. He's very smart, very bright, and he and Shirley Robinson Sprinkle, so I remember, we did this a lot, but we used to compete against other schools scholastically. And they were so good. Listen, these great prizes. They won a radio for the school, but they did win. Like I say, you can't say we weren't smart and we weren't bright, because we were. Let's see what else I can tell you. We did little things. We went off campus. So there was a potato chip factory down the street. And they would sell us, they knew we'd come, we sneak off campus, and we get this huge bag for, depending on how much you wanted, a nickel or a dime, huge bag of all the broken, crunched up, awful potato chips, and we come skipping back with our little greasy bag of potato chips, and we do that, I don't know why, it was so good, the best potato chips we've ever had. But it was funny when I think about it, all those, and then finally our principal stopped us from doing that. First of all, it wasn't nutritious. And secondly, you can't leave campus. If I tell you the truth about my graduation, I didn't graduate from Dunbar. The year I would have graduated from Dunbar was 1951. And that's when the schools were desegregated, but that's not why. Well, that's why my class didn't graduate from Dunbar. But my father had been called back into active duty in the Korean War, and he was in the Navy. So Mom didn't want to be without him, so he was stationed in Blue Ridge in San Diego for a while. So we moved there for that year. She'd always wanted to live in, that's where they were on their way when they brought me here. I came here at 18 months. They were on their way to California and didn't make it. This is where they had to stop to get work and so forth and so on. And so my father fell in love with this place. And so I say I'm born and raised. That's not true. I'm raised, but I came at 18 months. So our graduations for a long time were held at Safford Junior High School because we had no auditorium and so forth. But I remember other class graduations, older classes, and they did wonderful things. Like students would, when they graduate, they would will what they thought were their greatest qualities to the other students. So it's like Versa would will her legs to Glenda, who had apparently skinny legs, So they would do that. Folks would will their pitching ability in baseball to the other guys and stuff like that. And I thought that was really beautiful. We also, every year we were in the rodeo parade, and every year we won a prize. I can't remember if it was what they were called now, if it was best majorette or best drum and bugle corps, but we did win a prize, and I was in it just one year. I marched until I marched a hole in my majorette boot. I mean, a real hole. I must have been marching hard, but that was fun, and I remember that. All in all, I did love Dunbar, and all in all, I feel Dunbar loved me back. And I think that's why I'm here now, and that's why I don't want to leave it until I'm sure our legacy is in place and solid, because my heart is here. And I didn't realize how much my heart was here until I joined the Dunbar board. And I joined the Dunbar board because I thought I was busy. I was still working. I didn't want to, but I was working at Urban League, and the Dunbar board, for some reason, used to meet at Urban League. And Chris made me be on the board. Chris Lander, who is one of our other distinguished graduates, one of them. He was in charge of model cities here in Tucson. And before that, he was in Jimmy Carter's cabinet. He was with the Aeronautical Board. He's a brilliant man, a nice man. I just can't say too much. And he passed away a few years ago. But he's actually the first reason I came back to Dunbar, and now I came back to volunteer a day, and now I'm here every day, just about, you know. But I do like it. I don't know if there's anything. Oh, we had a choir, Mr. Sidney Dawson, who, when he left Dunbar, he went on to teach in other schools. He was also principal at other schools in Tucson, but he was our choir director. And we sang a cappella, and we sang everywhere in Tucson. We sing at the Temple of Music and Art. They asked us to sing because we were really, I think our sound was more mature than our ages. And we were, I gotta say, we were really good, you know. So he did that. That was enjoyable. I know he told me to sing lower because my voice carries. And he'd go, you know, you sing lower. Don't you sing out so much. But those were wonderful experiences. I remember once I admired him so much because it was one of the hotels in Tucson. They asked us to come sing there, and we did. And when we got there, they told us to come to the back door. And Sidney told them, no, you invited us, we're here to sing. We either come to the front door, this door, or we go home. And I just thought, I don't know. But the thing was, I was so happy with him because we did go through the front door and we did sing here. There's so many things I'm leaving out because I can't remember. I know one of my classmates, Ed Sparks, he eventually became a dentist, but his father had a ranch out near Roger Road. And so they lived out there. At this time for Dunbar, that's the Amphi district. And Black kids couldn't go to Amphi, you know, in the junior high and lower grades. So the school board paid for a limousine to drive Ed from his home every day to Dunbar. And if he had track or meeting or whatever, the chauffeur had to wait and take him. What a waste of money. Now Ed was embarrassed about it. We thought, how cool, you know, we wish we could do that. But that's just an example of different things we had to go through and things we went through here.